guys, today I'm going to show you how to make focaccia from scratch at home. The first thing we're going to do is make what's called a pre-ferment. And that's basically a bit of dough that we've allowed to sit out overnight or perhaps longer to develop a lot more flavor. I don't want to go too technical for you, but it really does help improve the flavor of any type of bread or dough that you're making. So what I did is I have my instant yeast and some lukewarm water. Lukewarm really means about 70 to 75 degrees Fahrenheit. So depending how warm or cold it is in your house, you might need to adjust. So I've let that bloom. I whisked it up a little bit after I put the water in the bowl because that's super important to let that yeast start to hydrate. And now it's ready to go on the mixer. So all that's in this is yeast, water, and bread flour. That's all we need for this pre-ferment. So I'm gonna get this guy in the mixer and add my flour. And we're gonna use the dough hook, and we really just wanna make sure that this pre-ferment is completely hydrated. What that means is there's no like chunks of flour that are dry and sticking out, because that's not gonna make our final dough very delicious. So I'm gonna go pretty low and just let this start to come together as long as it takes. It's gonna sit in the fridge overnight. It's okay to leave it out on the counter. This particular Biga likes to be in the fridge overnight, and it'll ferment just fine in there. And then we're gonna add that to our dough tomorrow when we make the focaccia. All right, guys, this has been on the mixer for only a few minutes and it is ready to go. This Biga, like I said, it's kind of a small bit of bread dough. So it's nice and hydrated. There aren't any chunky flour bits, anything kind of weird. So I'm gonna put this in a plastic container. This is comically large because I'm going to use this for my final focaccia dough. I might as well use the same container twice, no reason not to. Just to take a little bit of spray, pan spray, because I don't want this to stick to the container. And I'm just going to pop this in this guy, push him down a little bit, and he's going to ferment in the fridge overnight, and we'll come back to him tomorrow and make a delicious, beautiful focaccia for you. Hi guys, so today we're gonna finish up making this focaccia and I am so excited for this. So I have my Biga that we fermented overnight in the fridge. I chopped him up a little bit so he'll be a little easier to get incorporated into the dough. I've got a little bit of olive oil, and then I've just got bread flour and salt in this bowl as well. So I've got my yeast ready to go, and I've got my 75-degree water right here. I'm gonna just measure my water into my yeast, and then I'm gonna give it a nice whisk and let it bloom for a couple minutes, and then I'm gonna add the rest of the ingredients on the mixer. This is an important step. I feel like a lot of times people miss when making bread, just allowing your yeast to activate and hydrate a little bit in that water. Give it a nice whisk, let it fully dissolve in there. You don't want to see granules of the yeast not getting hydrated. And then before I actually add my Biga, I'm gonna let this mix a little bit because I don't want there to be like chunks of flour on it. So we are going to mix this guy on low speed for 4 minutes and then on a higher speed for 3 minutes. All right, so this is definitely starting to get hydrated. I'm gonna add my little chunks of Biga in. Cutting it up just does help it incorporate a little easier. And then I'm gonna pour in my olive oil. And I'm really not gonna start my timer until I've got all my ingredients in the mixer going. So that's looking good. So I'm gonna start my timer now, and we'll come back when we move it to high speed so you guys can see what the dough looks like. Okay guys, so our dough has been mixing for 3 minutes on that higher speed and it is looking beautiful. Oh, gorgeous. So I'm going to get this guy in my sprayed container. I'm using the same container I did for my Biga because why not? So you do want to have a little pan spray in there just so nothing sticks to it. And get all of this beautiful dough right in there. Gorgeous. And I'm gonna let this ferment or proof on the counter for 1 hour. And then we're gonna come back to it and fold it a bit and let it proof again. All right, guys, this focaccia has been proofing for an hour, so I'm gonna do our first fold on this guy. Just gonna turn the dough out on the counter. I lightly greased my counter because this is a really wet dough. Normally I would bench flour it, but just today I'm gonna grease it. So I'm gonna fold in quarters. Hold this guy up. Pull this guy up. You can see that dough is really looking nice. We're just gonna pop him onto the seam, back in the bin, put the lid on and proof him for 1 more hour, and then we're gonna get him on the sheet pan. All right, guys, this focaccia has been proofing for another hour, so I'm gonna get it ready to go on the sheet pan. Once I get it on the sheet pan, it's gonna sit for another hour before we do our final proof before the bake. So the biggest thing, because this dough is so wet, I'm gonna really liberally spray my sheet pan. Make sure I get all the edges so nothing sticks. Spray it more than you think you should have to. Now I'm gonna take my focaccia dough and turn this guy out. Oh, he is looking and smelling and feeling amazing. Okay, little sticky guy. So when we first get it on the sheet pan, it's nice and wet. I'm just gonna kind of stretch it to the edges, but after the next hour, he's gonna stretch a lot more. So we're just gonna kind of get him on there, leave him alone, let him sit for an hour, and we're gonna come back and stretch him all the way to the edges. Hi guys, so this guy's been proofing for an hour. We're just gonna do our final little stretch onto the sheet pan. I just wanna make sure that my focaccia is gonna get all the way to the edges really nicely. Once it's had that time to proof a bit, it's a lot easier to stretch. Ooh, and he's looking so good and feels amazing. I'm gonna take this opportunity to olive oil him a little bit. And then we're gonna let this final proof for another 45 minutes to an hour until it's nice and poofy in the pan. And that is when I'm gonna poke the quintessential focaccia holes into that and spread some salt and pepper, maybe a few fresh herbs, whatever you like, really. You get to be creative with it. Yum. This dough is really soft, really lovely, and smells amazing, especially with that olive oil on there. All right, we're gonna let this guy proof at least another 45 minutes to an hour, and we'll be back to show you what it looks like. All right, guys, I actually let this proof a little more like an hour and a half instead of just an hour. It's a little bit cold in this kitchen right now, so you might have to adjust your proofing time depending on how hot or cold it is where you live. So we took the liberty of poking some little finger holes in it. It's one of the funnest parts of focaccia. Not necessary, but really aesthetically pleasing. It's all nice and poofy. Basically, what I was looking for in terms of the final proof is this focaccia to come up to the edge of the pan or a little bit over, so even the sort of lower parts are still right about there. So today, just for fun, I've got some fleur de sel, some nice black pepper, and a little bit of fresh thyme. That's what I'm gonna coat this with. Feel free to top it with whatever you like. Salt and pepper is kind of a must with the olive oil. Any fresh herbs will work. When I was in pastry school, I had a pastry chef who poked fresh grapes into it. It was delicious. You can do all sorts of stuff. So get creative in what sounds fun and great and yummy to you. But at the very least, we need salt and pepper. Really for anything. Some nice fleur de sel on there. Oh, beautiful. If you have fresh herbs in your garden, rosemary, oregano, fennel, feel free to do any dried herbs you want as well. Those little holes kind of capture that olive oil and those seasonings. Nice little bite of yummy goodness. All right, this guy looks ready to go into the oven. And so this bread likes to bake up with some steam. Most at-home ovens don't have a steam function. I'm sure yours doesn't, mine doesn't, I wish it did. But I'm gonna show you a little life hack on how to get some steam in your oven and make some more artisanal breads at home. So I'm gonna go over to the oven and then I'm gonna show you, I just have a really cheapo spray bottle full of warm water. Once we open that oven door, we're gonna douse that oven in that spray of just straight water, get a nice coat of steam for this guy to go in the oven. And it's only gonna bake for about 18 minutes at 425. All right guys, so I've got my spray bottle full of warm water. I'm just gonna open my oven door and just douse this oven. Oh, what a beautiful sound. Great. And I'm gonna pop this focaccia right in. A little extra on the bottom here. And we are good to go. I wanna put the timer on for 18 minutes and then we'll check back when it's ready. All right guys, our focaccia is out of the oven. It's looking gorgeous. I'm so ready to eat this. I'm gonna start cutting it with my bread knife. And oh man, that texture. I usually see focaccia in restaurants cut into long, thin strips like this. And I'm gonna go ahead and cut this guy in half and let you just see that beautiful texture we worked so hard on. Isn't that delicious? I cannot wait to eat this, and I really hope you guys enjoy making this at home.